Hey there, fellows. Right, I think we can actually make this happen before the end of the summer. I'm, of course, referring to building up this wonderful boat of ours. We already had it out on the water. We ran about in it. At 40, well, it was actually 38 Ks with 3 people on board, but when you're alone, it goes up to 40. Not the worst result, it is packing a Moskvich engine with just 60 horsepower. I mean, it propels the boat just fine, and it's nice to know that it starts when you need it to. But we still would like to try a different engine. We want to go for something that's... As always, it's going to be a Japanese engine. What else were we going to use? And it'll be quite a bit more powerful than the current motor. It'll be a JZ, we'll be using the current drive mechanism, though later we should convert it to water jet propulsion. That's something I've never dealt with, but I need to start getting familiar at some point. For now, we're gonna leave the old propeller, swap in a JZ, and from there we go boating once again. See what this boat is capable of with the Japanese engine, in a sort of Super Saiyan form. And that's about it. As for where we sourced the engine, now don't get too upset, but Shorty has been just sitting around for ages at this point. And it is packing a pretty good engine. So we're gonna pull the engine out of Shorty and use it here. Don't worry, Shorty will live on. We can always put a new engine in it. But for now, the boat is the higher priority. Okay, let's do this. We swap a Toyota 1JZ into a boat. First start. Originally uploaded in the summer of 2020. Translation and voiceover by BMI Russian. Here's the situation, guys. We've removed the floor panels, undressed this entire area. Now, as you might imagine, there was water splashing around here for years. There were some oil leaks. And over such an extended period of time, this bay has accumulated a ton of filth. This looks really bad. And I don't even know how to clean it, to be honest. I tried yesterday, but I wasn't able to. There is no drain plug down there, though I guess you can scoop or pump the water out. I couldn't do anything about the filth, but then an idea occurred to me. I remembered we have our own car wash. I can just bring it there. We can test the crew, see how professional they are. After all, they did go through a pretty stringent vetting process. So I suggest we challenge them and see what they're made of. Show everything to you guys. Okay, I suggest we hook the trailer up to a car and go pay our detailing center a visit. Meanwhile, back in the garage, So, on the crankshaft we have a spacer. After that you have the Moskvich flywheel and clutch. Machined bell housing for a JZ compatible gearbox. We flattened that, and we've measured everything up in such a way as for the input shaft to slip into the bearing we've got on the crankshaft. You've got the splines right here, and this surface has not been subject to any modification. So we got the two surfaces. Now we piece this together. It fits tight inside the bearing, there's no play. And so once we get this bit to where we want it, this is perfectly level. And the axis is going to be bang on. And now it's all a matter of welding the JZ and Moskvich bell housings together. So we're gonna weld all around. And the adapter, or rather the welded adapter plate, if you will, it'll be complete. So let's weld, and from there we can proceed to fit the engine. Now I should mention that we need to make an effort to get the engine level with this part, because this is where you have the third engine mount. The other two are going to remain in the same spot they used to be, and you got one in the back. And with that, you've got a proper configuration consisting of 3. That'll be enough to ensure proper engine placement and operation. Okay, time to weld. And let's look at the results. Wow, the detailers have done a good job. I mean, look at how clean the boat is. No more oil or dirt. Now those black stains, that's the old caulk they used to seal the hull of this boat. I mean, this thing is pretty old. I don't know whose handiwork that is, but I do have a feeling that I might have to do all of that all over again. But that'll be later. In the meantime, I'm gonna tend to the engine, the electronics and all of that, the plumbing and so on, get everything connected and up and running, and I just cannot wait to get this thing onto the water, to see what it's capable of with the new engine. In any case, this work environment, after we've, you saw how filthy this used to be, with all of the oil and dirt. But now I wasn't even wearing gloves. My hands are clean. I haven't gotten dirty. And yeah, my clothes are all good. Yeah, everything is really good, and it's not slippery anymore. It used to be really slippery. You could have hurt yourself in there, which isn't the case anymore. Everything is looking really good. Okay, let's commence the assembly process then. So here's where we're at with this. We've welded the motor mounts, and we've set up a frame inside the boat. It'll serve to reinforce it, but will also be the foundation to which we'll be welding stuff. We need to put in some brackets for the mounts, so we bolt on some angled bits, weld to those. That'll be all fine and dandy. We won't have too much trouble mounting this, with the exception that it is quite difficult to nail the required angles. The vertical Axis, that one is fairly easy, because you have a fairly good view of how the engine aligns. But the horizontal axis, bear in mind the shaft has a slight angle to it. And at that point, you're essentially sort of, working through it on intuition, pretty much. Because we do not have the instruments required to get everything on point. That is what it is. Hopefully the rubber couplers help mitigate any possible miscalculations. We'll see, I mean, we might even be able to adjust the angle. A little bit here, a little bit there. Find a way to get everything more or less to where we want it. Right, what else? Let me tell you what we've done in this area. With the bell housing. This is from a Moskvich. The clutch... Well, it's supposed to be for a Moskvich. I mean to say that it definitely is. But in order to adapt it to a Toyota engine, we had to do the following. The starter motor and the flex plate are for a Toyota. We've removed the torque converter but left the flex plate. But to be able to use the Moskvich flywheel and clutch assembly, we had to make an adapter that's 70 millimeters long. Which is to say the flywheel and flex plate are separated by a good 70 mil. But you saw all of that. We've done some machining, and we fitted a bearing. The input shaft is going to slip into the bearing, as it's supposed to slip into the Moskvich crankshaft. We're using the old clutch. Oh, and here's another thing. We have trimmed the Toyota bell housing by precisely 53 millimeters. We've machined that to make the surface nice and even. We've obviously replaced the bearings, and now the two housings, the one from Japan and the one from Russia, they're close friends. Rather, the one from the Soviet Union. This wasn't all that complicated. Aside from when we had to set up the water pump. You see, the old one requires a wedge belt, while this is a poly belt. I attempted to remove the pulley from the old Moskvich pump, but the damn thing wouldn't come off. It would have required heating and so on. And so we decided to go a simpler route. We went and bought an electric pump, one made in Germany. I've been into Mercedes cars for quite a while, and I know that Mercedes pumps are good. And now this is running an electric water pump for a Mercedes. So everything is in place, we're looking pretty good. And now we get to the best part. To actually installing the engine. Getting it into the boat. So yeah, we're about to get stuck into that. Work on the plumbing and everything. I actually intend to use the old Moskvich cooling system. Yeah, I realize that it might not be up to it, I'm not gonna argue. But for testing purposes it'll do, and I really want to try this out. I'll obviously set up a temperature gauge, and keep track of it to make sure the engine doesn't overheat. I'm going to be keeping a close eye on it. But we're ready to rock, we're looking good. The weekend is just around the corner, and I really want to get this boat on the water. Okay, let's do this. Okay, it's in there, we've done a bit of plumbing, just enough to start it, which we're pretty much ready to do. We've got a gauge cluster over there. Okay, let's try firing it up. It runs. But not for long. We have run out of gas. Switch it on. Oh wait, it's the The cluster only works when the starter motor is spinning. Is it broken? Is it broken? No, that's a temporary... Okay, right. Apparently something isn't getting powered up. Didn't you say it had a power supply? Well, it did, yeah. Hold up. Let's do some more checks. Wait a minute while I look for a tester. Okay, people. Won't need one. What do you mean? I can check without it. Using your tongue? Yep. Okay, if you want to use your tongue. This will be our third attempt. Haven't lost count yet. We've got the ignition on. We've done a bit of rewiring. Let rip. Everything works great. I mean, the engine starts, that's all good. But the thing is that the manifold is going to require water cooling. Yeah, we got to get the water-to-water cooler up and running, as well as the water-to-oil cooler, get a water supply going, and that will allow us to properly start it, and to get an idea about the thermodynamics. Now, don't get too mad, but we've left the Moskvich cooling system in there, because, I mean, we simply don't have the time to make a new one. I had a chat with some folks who could have sold them to me already complete, but the cost, man. I mean, we are not building a spaceship here, and so screw it. Yes, you can make the cooling yourself, but that's going to require some precise calculations. Granted, the literature is out there. That would be a curious read, but for now we're going to go with this. Water will be flowing into the cooler somewhat differently, because, well, like I said when we went ahead and removed the Moskvich water pump, this one right here, we had to pull it out, because it seems to be doing a decent job, but the reliability is suspect. Right now we're running a single electric pump, but that's temporary. The plan is to add at least... How many, one or two? We'll figure it out. We're almost there. This will be up and running shortly. Here's what's up, guys. So far we have done the bare minimum. There is a lot more to do, because the engine swap is far from the only thing this boat will be subject to, believe you me. As for where we are at currently, I promised I'd lower the seat, and we have. It's sitting nice and low, almost on the floor. You've got a backrest, and you can actually see well through the windshield. I've removed the side cladding. It needs to be modified, but no worries, we good. We got a floor. That's all good and well. And the important thing is the new engine. I mean, it was just sitting. It was ready to be put to use. And if I'm being completely honest, I wanted to do this swap on a budget, using an inexpensive motor. This one is cheap and reliable. You can find engines for the price of... Now don't laugh, though, I was quite amused while searching. They go for 8 to 12,000 rubles. And these can easily last for 600 to 800,000 kilometers, with no trouble at all. I've actually learned quite a lot about these. But I got my hands on this particular unit, and it's the one we're going to be using. Now, I'm sure you want to see this thing on the water, and so do I. I really, really want to. I want to see it out in its natural habitat, but that's something we'll get to later. This was quite a massive undertaking. You'd think that this would be fairly straightforward, but there was just so much fiddly stuff going on. The manifold, the cooling system was pretty difficult to work with. Also positioning, the bell housing mods, intermediate shafts. Anyway, you saw all of that and we seem to have gotten there. The engine works, it's all looking very good. From here we do some boating. Now there is a certain reason why we're not going to do it just yet, but we'll discuss that next episode. I'll tell you why we are postponing the actual boating. We'll do a bit of remodeling. It won't be too difficult, and we can head out. To stay in the loop for what's coming next, subscribe to the channel, suggestions, comments, thumbs up. Tell us what you think about the build. We'd love to see what you have to say. I'm sure we have at least a few enthusiasts watching. And that's it for this video. Catch you guys later.